And the Supreme Court out with another decision, this time regarding the fate of certain migrants living with temporary protected status. There are a bunch of them, and Shannon Bream joins us again with more. Shannon, how do we read this one?
Okay, so Dana, we read it as a win for the Trump administration, which has wanted to wipe out temporary protected status for more than 1 million people who are living here in this country. These cases centered on a number of Haitian and Syrian refugees who were here in the country. And basically what the court has said is that they can't challenge this decision by the Department of Homeland Security, by the administration, that they're the ones who get to make the assessment about whether they leave or not. I haven't read the whole thing, but they do get into some of the claims that by some of those who are advocating for the Haitian refugees, that there was some kind of racial animus. The court says they don't see evidence of that. So I'll keep reading, but it's another very fractured decision that seems to be a win for the Trump administration, which would be the second win for them on immigration. That earlier decision that we talked about that came out just a few minutes ago saying that if you get to the Mexico border, but you don't make it onto U.S. soil, you can't file an asylum claim. So the Trump administration has to be happy about what they've gotten today. We've still got 8 opinions left, and it looks like Monday will be our next opinion day.
What's up, family? The Supreme Court just dealt Trump his biggest immigration win yet, stripping protective status from over 1 million migrants. And New York City's new socialist mayor Mamdani had a complete meltdown on live TV trying to defend people who were never supposed to stay here permanently. This man stood up there, put a pride flag behind his desk, and tried to conflate legal immigrants with people who violated their temporary status. Real talk. The receipts are insane, so let me break this all the way down. Now, I want you to pay attention to something real quick because this is where the whole argument falls apart. See, this man got a pride flag sitting behind his desk. He got it right there where everybody can see it. And I'm asking myself, why does he need to do that? Why can't he just sit at his desk and run his city without broadcasting what he believes? That's virtual signaling, and that's not leadership. That's a man performing for the cameras instead of doing the actual work. But here's the problem, the bigger problem, family. Watch what he does next, because he starts talking about New York. He says more than 3 million people in this city were born somewhere else. He's proud of that. He talks about Haitian brothers and sisters, Syrian brothers and sisters standing in solidarity. All this language about a city, about being a city built by immigrants from all over the world. And I'm sitting here thinking, hold on. What does that have to do with anything? This is exhibit A of the trick he's running on you. He's taking people who came here the right way, people who went through the legal process, who got real status, who paid the money, who did the paperwork, and he's lumping them in. He's lumping them in with people whose temporary status has expired. That's not the same thing. It's not even close to the same thing. So let me be clear about this. 3 million people born elsewhere in New York got citizenship. They got permanent residency. They went through the system. They paid for it. They followed the rules. That's one group. Then you got another group of people on temporary protective status, TPS. That means temporary, not permanent, not forever, temporary. There's a difference. And he's deliberately blurring that line. And here's what kills me. He came here the right way. His family did the work. They paid the price. They got real status. Now he's standing up there using legal immigrants as a shield so he can defend people whose temporary status has run out. That's deceptive. That's using good people to cover for a bad argument. And he wants you to think that if you are against removing temporary protective status, you are against all immigration. You are against the people who built this city. You are against Haitian and Syrian people. And that's the trap. That's the conflation. But those aren't the same people. You can support legal immigration. You can love the people who came here the right way and still say that temporary means temporary. Those two things aren't in conflict, but he needs you to believe they are, because if you see them as two separate things, his whole argument collapses. Now, looking at what the Supreme Court actually ruled and why they were right, the Supreme Court had 2 major rulings on the same day, as you heard in this clip, and both of them came down on the side of the government, both times. And before I break that down to you in regards to the Supreme Court and the 2 major rulings, in which both of them came down on the same side of government both times, I want you to see what I was talking about referring to the New York mayor, Zohran Mamdani.
We saw today the Supreme Court make a decision that is putting so many people's lives in jeopardy. And I just came back from a rally with 1199 as I stood alongside a number of Haitian New Yorkers who are concerned about what this means for their status in our city. And frankly, this city, the one that we love, is one that has been built by so many from so many different parts of the world. And that includes our Haitian brothers and sisters, our Syrian brothers and sisters. And we stand here ready to be in solidarity with all of those who are concerned by today's decision, and beyond just language of solidarity, actions of solidarity. Now, what that means when it comes to our city is if you are worried about what this means for your status, if you're worried about what this means for your family, I would encourage you to call our Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs hotline, and you can do so at 1-800-354-0365. Again, that's 1-800-354-0365. Now, many of you know this is a city of 8.5 million people. More than 3 million of us were born elsewhere. I'm one of them. We're a city that's proud of our immigrant heritage. And when we think about especially what Haitian New Yorkers have had to deal with, not just for weeks or months or years, but frankly for decades, we have seen a cruelty that has become normalized. And to have people who frankly taught the world about freedom have their own freedom be put in jeopardy by the actions of a Supreme Court and a federal administration, it is not only cruel, it's something that we will not ever accept. And so we stand here as New Yorkers proud of standing in solidarity and proud to do everything that we can to keep people in their homes and to keep people together.
All right, so now that you guys get what I was talking about and breaking down in regards of New York Mayor here on the screens around Mamdani, let's break down when it comes to what the Supreme Court has said on the two major rulings, because it's important you understand exactly what the court said. The court centered on Haitian and Syrian refugees who were trying to challenge visa denials. They came to the United States and the State Department looked at their applications and said no. These people then argued in court that they should be able to challenge that decision. They said the government, they said, was being unfair. They said there was racial bias involved, and they wanted a court to force the State Department to explain why they were denied. The Supreme Court looked at all of that and said, no, the government gets to decide who comes in, period. That's it. That's the ruling. Now, the key doctrine here is called consular non-reviewability. Let me explain that in plain English because it's easier than it sounds. It means the State Department makes the call on visas. Courts don't override them. When you apply for a visa, you're not applying to a court. You're not appealing to judges. You're dealing with the State Department, and their decision is final. That's the law. Why does this matter? Because national security decisions can't get tied up in court for years. If every time the government denied a visa, the person could sue and drag it through the courts, the whole system falls apart. You'll have judges deciding whether someone with gang ties should be allowed in, and you'll have lawyers arguing about intelligence reports, and you'll have years of delays while people wait to hear if they can enter the country. That's not how sovereignty works. The activists were claiming racial bias. They said the government was targeting Haitian and Syrian people specifically because of their race. So the court looked at the evidence, they examined the records, and they said there's no evidence of that. The denials were based on other factors, not race. The court was clear on that point, but that's not even the biggest part of the ruling. On the same day, the court issued another decision. If you get to the southern border, but you don't actually make it onto U.S. soil, you can't file for asylum. That means if you're stopped at the border before you cross, you don't get to go to court and ask for protection. The government wins on that front too. So the Trump administration got two major victories in one day. The government can deny visas without explaining themselves in court, and people can't file for asylum if they haven't physically entered the country. These are massive wins for border security. Now, why people are upset about this? Because they thought marriage to a citizen would protect someone from all of this. They thought if you married an American, the rules didn't apply to you anymore, but that's not how it works. Your citizenship gives you rights. It doesn't give your non-citizen spouse automatic entry to the country. It does not override security concerns. It doesn't prevent the State Department from saying no. So let me make this simple for you. Temporary means temporary, not permanent, not forever, not a stepping stone to staying forever. Temporary. When you read that word, that's exactly what it means. When someone applies for temporary protected status, they're signing a piece of paper that says, I want to be here for a temporary period. The government says, okay, they give you the status and it's temporary. That's the deal. Both sides agreed to that deal from the beginning. So when that temporary status expires, what happens? The government does exactly what both of you agreed would happen. They ask you to leave. They are following the agreement and they're enforcing what you signed up for. How is that unfair? How is that cruel? That's the deal you made, and people are shocked by this, and they're acting like the government is doing something unexpected. But this was the arrangement from day one. You came in on temporary status. The status has an expiration date. When it expires, the status is over. That's not a surprise. It's not a trick. That's the law. Now, here's where it gets serious. If the government has intelligence that someone has gang ties, they have every right to say no to entry. They don't owe that person a detailed explanation. They don't have to prove it in court. They have intelligence. That's enough. National security comes first. A marriage certificate doesn't change that. Your citizenship gives you the right to live here and it gives you the right to vote. It gives you protection under the law, but it doesn't give your non-citizen spouse the automatic right to enter the country. Those are two different things. Your rights are yours. They don't transfer to someone else. Go try this somewhere else. Go to Mexico, go to Canada, go to any country on earth and try to come in on temporary status and then just stay forever. Tell them you got married to a citizen and see what happens. They're going to tell you the same thing. Temporary means you leave when it's over. Every single country operates the same way because this is how sovereignty works. The real frustration people have is they think the rules shouldn't apply to them and they think their situation is special. But rules are what kept the country functioning. Without rules, you don't have order, you don't have security, and you don't have a system. You have chaos. The border isn't just a line on the map, it's the government's most basic responsibility. Without a border, you don't have a country. You have open land where anybody can do whatever they want. And the Supreme Court understood that, and that's why they backed the executive branch on this decision. Now, let's talk about what consular non-reviewability actually means in real life. The State Department needs to make decisions fast. They need to move. They need to process applications and say yes or no without getting tangled up in courtrooms for years. If every single visa denial could be challenged in court, if every person could hire a lawyer and drag the government through litigation, the entire system collapses. You'll have backlog on backlog. Applications sitting for decades. Meanwhile, people with actual security concerns are waiting to hear a judgment from a judge instead of a security professional. Think about the scale. We're talking about over 1 million people in temporary protective status right now. 1 million. The government has to manage that. They have to track it. They have to enforce it. If the court has sided with the activists, if it said you can challenge visa denials in court, you'll have 1 million lawsuits. Lawyers everywhere, courts backed up for decades. The system doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. The Supreme Court said the president and his agencies have the expertise. They have the intelligence. They have the information that courts don't have access to. When the State Department looks at an application and says gang ties or criminal history or security concern, they're not making that up. They have intelligence and they have records. Courts don't have that same level of detail. Courts aren't equipped to second guess national security decisions. Here's what the activists won't tell you. The government didn't deny those visas because of race. They had other reasons: gang affiliation, criminal history, security concerns. The court looked at the evidence and found no racial bias. But that doesn't fit the narrative, so you don't hear it as much. People keep trying to blur the lines. They'll say legal immigration versus temporary status versus criminal history like it's all the same thing. It's not. Legal immigrants came through the system. They got approved. They have real status. And people on temporary protective status have a clock. The clock runs out. People with suspected gang ties, they don't get in. Those are 3 separate categories. You can't mix them together and pretend they're the same. This ruling protects working Americans. Border security is about protecting jobs. It's about protecting resources. It's about protecting safety for people already here. When the government says no to someone with gang ties, the person isn't competing with you for jobs. That person isn't taking a spot from someone trying to come here the right way. That person isn't creating security problems in your neighborhood, and the emotional language sounds good: cruelty, separation, heartbreak, but those words are covering up what's actually happening. The government has a process. People violate it, or they hide things, or their time runs out. And when that happens, the process works. That's not cruelty, that's order. So the Supreme Court didn't invent cruelty. They upheld the law. Temporary status means temporary. That's the deal. Marriage is beautiful, but it's not a Visa card. And the government protects the border. That's non-negotiable. All right. And I want to leave you with something deeper because this goes beyond one ruling or one city. There's a passage in Romans chapter 13, verse 1, and it says this: let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. All right. I'm going to say it again. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. Now, whether you believe in God or not, here the principle underneath. Agreements matters, rules matter. The order that makes society function matters. When you sign up for something temporary, you're agreeing to a structure. You're saying, I understand the terms, I understand when this ends. That's not just religion, that's just how every contract works. That's how every job works. That's how every lease works. You sign temporary, you know it's temporary. The wisdom here, and this applies whether you're spiritual or not, is this: don't make promises you can't keep and don't break agreements you made. When you come into a country on temporary status, you're making an agreement with that country. You're saying, I understand this is temporary. The government is holding up their end and they gave you the status. Now they're enforcing the end date. That's not cruelty, that's integrity. That's both sides keeping their word. Think about your own life. If you borrow money from a friend and said, I'll pay you back in 6 months, then 6 months came and you didn't pay your friend, wouldn't be cruel for asking. They'll be right to ask. You made a deal and the deal has an end date. That's how trust works. That's how societies works. That's how families work. Respect the agreement or the whole system falls apart. So whether this connects you or to your faith or just goes to your common sense, the takeaway is the same. Temporary means temporary. Laws exist so that people can plan, predict, and trust each other. Without that, you got chaos, you got people confused, and you got people angry because nobody knows what the rules are. The Supreme Court said the rules are clear. The government can enforce them, and that's the piece I'm standing on. So let the love supersede the hate, family. Get this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new to the family. Turn on your post notifications. And if you are already a part of the family, I appreciate you for rocking with me. I'll catch you in the next one, family. Peace.